Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, The Next 30 Days on the Job. My name is Morgan. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here for Bryant and Stratton College Online. Today, we conclude our three-part program from our career expert, Stephen Krempl. Stephen Krempl is the president of Krempl Communications International, which is a company that focuses on management and executive development. Before founding Krempl Communications, Stephen was the vice president of global learning at Starbucks Coffee Company and served in senior training and education roles at Fortune 500 companies such as Yum Brands, Pepsi Company, and Motorola. So I will pass the torch over to you, Stephen.
Morgan?
Yep, we can hear you and we see your screen.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the third session in the series. I'm glad to be here and thankful for Bryant and Stratton College Online to host this webinar series for career advancement for all of you. All I'll say is, since the last time I spoke to you, I've just come back from a successful trip with a U.S. multinational in Tokyo, Japan, actually. And doing many of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today, teaching a group of executives just how to refine or learn some of these skills that we're going to be talking about to you. And if the executives can do it, then I'm sure you can do it as well. There's so much to share with you today. And even if you do one or two things from each of the previous calls that I've made, you're so far ahead of your peers, you won't believe it. The best news I had was after I did that program 3 weeks ago, I just got an email from the head of the business unit, and she said she was ecstatic because the three of the people in the class actually did a presentation using many of the techniques we talked about to their president. The president of Japan was pretty impressed and was quite taken aback. So if even Japanese executives can do it, then definitely you guys can do it, right? So that's good news. So why are you doing it? Because here's the thing that's going to happen to you. You're going to be in an organization, right? You got that interview, you got in, and last week we talked about all the things you need to do, or the last session we talked about all the things you need to do in the first week, first 5 days when you get in the job. That is now you for the next 30 days and beyond. If you are there, you want to be able to stay out and you want to be able to say, I'm as good, if not better than everybody else, though. And remember, the phrase I have is you are only as good as a person who comes before you or a person who comes after you, though. Okay? So you be good now. In fact, some of you may think you're really, really good. That's great, though. But remember, you're only going to be as good as you think compared to the person who comes before you and the person who comes after you. For example, though, if you're in a meeting, you first and you articulate your point of view very clearly, that's great, though. But what happens if the second person comes in and does it better than you? And if the third person comes after that better than the second person, though? That's how you have to do this whole thing. So you got to pay attention, learn things we're going to talk to you about, and then apply it because you may be the new person on the block or rookie and you have to work a little harder. But remember, can impress and rookies can be better than people who clearly are in the job and who do not know the things that you will know, though. All right, so let's continue. There's plenty to talk about today, and if you can start writing on your questions so that at the end Morgan can field them to me and I'll answer them to the my best of my ability, though. All right, so remember we talked about this. These were the three-part series. In the last webinars we covered the, to get better prepared for the interview, which was you've got the interview, now what? Remember? And the second one is, so when you get into that job, what do you need to find out? Remember we talked about, the time element, the culture, and the stories. We covered that under you have the job, now what? And today, now you stand out amongst the crowd whilst you're in the job, though. And that's what we're going to be doing today. And do you have these abilities and be ready for the job world? And do the job world. Can I get you? Yep. So today what we're going to do is a 3-part series. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to put yourself in the path to success. And about a couple of secrets, set yourself apart in the workplace, and the 2 most important groups you need to start networking early to do this. Now, let me share with you. I remember I not do this as a webinar, but I actually run one full-day class in a number of universities here in the Northwest because it's something I do on just my work I do with multinationals. So I share with you just one of the stories I've got back from one student, and she was from University of Idaho. She joined a medical company. Within a couple of months, I asked her how come she's so confident, and she was even outshining many of the people who've been with her organization for a long time. And she actually attributed to the GEM program she attended before she left for the workplace. And in fact, almost convinced her boss that everybody in the company needs to go through the GEM class. So this is a student who's less than 6 months in a job, convincing her boss that all her colleagues needed to go through a program that she attended. So talk about key and talk about somebody who's green. You can make an impact just like she did, even early on in the organization. The second story I wanted to share with you is a gentleman who was from Washington State University, and we came back to a class because I had some of the graduates come back to class and talk about how they've experienced it. And I asked him, I said, so what is the best thing you learned in the GEM class? And he said, by far, the FORM, F-R-M, and I'm going to talk to you about that today. And he said, being in the banking world, I can now talk to anybody in any situation, and I don't feel nervous because I always have something to say or I have something to talk about, and we'll teach that to you later to you. So I'm telling you that don't take these things for granted. You practice a couple of these things, and I know you're not going to get my feedback from me directly because these people get it in the class, but if you're ready just to take these things to heart, then you'll be way on your way to the path of success. So the things we talked about last week was remember in the first 5 minutes, you kind of 3, right? So are you prepared? Are you personable? Are you the perfect fit for the job? And one of the things we talked about was this. So to be ready for the future in your job, you need to be prepared, you need to be personable, and you need to be a perfect fit. But we talked about, which is most important for you, and again, I'm going to reinforce this because this is the key thing. Remember the 2 numbers I said. 95% of the time, you probably are not going to be able to change many things and characteristics you have. I want you to focus on the 5% of the time that you need to stand out in an organization. So what I'm going to say up front is you don't have to stand out and do all these things I'm talking about all the time, though. Because we are not built that way, right? But for important meetings, the important group discussion, for the important conference call, you need to muster up your courage to do the things we talked about, and that's what I'm going to bring across. So 5% of the time you can remain who you are, but 5% of the time you need to be able to step up. Now, we talked about this book called Jim Collins, book Good to Great, and talked about how he studied 50 companies over a 15-year period that had high single-digit growth or low double-digit growth. And something happened and suddenly became great, and we're shooting off the charts from a sales standpoint. So the question is, what happened at the inflection point where that made them great? Though they're good, but they became great. And we all know in the book, all was a decision. So my question to you is, have you decided that you want to be just good, or do you want to be great? Though? Because if you want to be great in your future career, or in the job that you're about to take, or in then you have to decide. Because when you decide, then is the time that you start to implement many of the things that you need to do in order to be great. The simple thing is a decision. You give the example. If you're out here in the Northwest, you know a place called Pike's Place Market, and there's a little, so it's a kind of a farmer's market. There's a lot of shops and fish stalls and little intricate things that people make from the local community and stuff. So 15 years ago, one of the fish stalls there decided they wanted to become world famous. Now think about this, though, guys. 15 years ago, I fish and crabs in a stall no bigger than 15 by 50, 20 by 20 feet, and I become world famous. Hello. If you told somebody or other fish people would say you've been drinking too much coffee or something else, though. They are really world famous, though. This has about 3 or 4 books written about them. Maybe some of you have read it, and maybe even seen some of the videos that they made about them. Major TV stations from around the world have come to shoot the Pike's Place Fish Market stall who wanted to decide that he wanted to become world famous. Now, you have to become world famous. Maybe you want to become world famous. But all it took was a decision on their part to do that. Now, it's going to happen to you that someone going, and this is the first one. I call 3 most dangerous words in the English language. Though. Number 1. I know, yeah, Steve, I know that. I heard about fish, and yeah, I heard about the stuff you talk about. Immediately when you say, I know that, you're going to, a block in front of you, and you stop listening. So what I'm telling you is, if you are doing it right now on the call, you're doing it in the office, in the meeting, and somebody's saying something, you're going to be talking to yourself in your head, and you're going, yeah, I know that. Once you do that, you're going to miss the opportunity to step in and step up and miss the opportunity. So please catch yourself. If you're doing it to yourself right now, what's the big deal? Catch yourself, because somebody's in the office, a boss, your colleague, or supervisor, or somebody's going to say something, and you're going to talk to yourself, and you're going to pull yourself out of the game. So don't be very wary about that, and if using that right now in the session right here. So the next one is this stuff. Classes I go and teach all around the world. Excuse stuff. When I to do something, or I tell them to do something new, then the first thing that comes out their mouth is this. Well, even you don't understand. You see, in my background, I don't come from a very good background. Or they go, you don't understand. You see, I only have a bachelor's degree. Everybody else here has a master's. If they have a master's, then they'll tell me why everybody else has a PhD, or they'll go, you realize, my family background is not very good, or the company I have is really quirky, or my boss is really a tyrant, or my colleagues, they're all junk. I know that. Okay? But understand, though, that thing that you come up with, as legitimate as they are excuses for you doing things that you need to do in order to stand out. So be very careful. There's things that you need to watch out for. One, when you're not saying I know things, it's new in the workplace. Second is coming up with excuses like you don't understand. We're different. I'm different. The company's different. Everything's different. We know that. Okay? But it's people that are able to find the things that they need to and value and try to change it are the ones that you're going to do. So what you need to do is your path to success. And we covered this a little bit before, but remind you, the first thing you need to do is your presence, right? How you come across. I say 95% of your success. Now, you make not one number or, find that, but I say 95% of your success depends on your presence, how you come across in the organization. I had many people who used to report to me who were PhDs and had, at the time, higher degrees than I had, but didn't know how to come across. They were the ones that were leading the group. So be clear. How do you come across stuff? Talk about energy level and everything in a little bit. So be very careful. So that's the first one. The second one is your ability to connect. And we don't have time to talk about all of this, but just remember this. And your ability to connect. That means when you're on one-on-one with your boss or one-on-one with your colleague or one-on-one with another functional area, when you're in a small group meeting, when you're in a functional group meeting, that means if you are in HR or finance or marketing or whichever group you belong to, you have a small functional meeting, and so you have company meetings. So everybody comes in and joins in and there's a little briefing, or there may be a customer meeting. There might be a conference call, that informal socials and meals and lunches or dinners or cocktails or whatever. How you come across and your ability to connect to people is going to be very important than all the things that you know. Now, I mean, you are good at your work, you have good attitudes and stuff like that, so that's a given, but these two are one. Volunteering to take charge or something. So somebody says, no, I really want somebody to take a lead in this project, and at that moment, everybody either looks down, looks up, suddenly a call, and they leave the meeting because nobody wants to take charge. The other thing that if you want to get ahead and out very early is, even though you are maybe green, maybe new to the company, if you put your hand up, you always get noticed. So volunteer and lead projects if you can. And it just help others. So you know what strengths you bring to the party and say, hey, I can help you out in that. I'm pretty good at some of the social media stuff, or I'm really good at Excel, I'm really good at PowerPoint, whatever it is. Some skill that you're really good at that doesn't take you a lot of time, and somebody's struggling, go help them out. Though. That will always comes around. The trick is this, though. How to do this in multiple situations, culture, with different people from different cultures and different levels in the organization. That's one of the things that they need to do it. Let's say, hey, I'm the new guy on the block, so I'm only going to mix with the people that I'm with. This is if you are a freshman, you should be able to mix up with seniors straight away. Don't only mix with freshmen, though. Those things you have to learn at the workplace very, very quickly. So, and let me go ahead. So here are some things we're going to be paying attention to for the next minutes. So, one, image, attention, and approach. I introduced this a little while ago, but now it's going to make even more sense to you, because the first thing you need to work out is your self-concept. Your concept affects your mindset affects your behavior, which is your presence and your ability to connect, right? And your behavior affects your results. You have a pretty defined or self-concept about yourself. It means, hey, look, they hired me, I'm good, I can contribute. If you don't, this always say, though, your results never exceed your self-concept. All right? So be careful. And so the issue is, well, maybe my self-concept is not all there. Then what you need to do? So the image you have of yourself, but then you need to pay attention to this stuff, your intention. So what is your intention by working for that organization? Really only 4 levels, right? I survive. Okay, it means, I'm just there for the paycheck, and I just need to pay my bills. 2, I need to go there and I'm cruising. This is kind of an easy job, so I'll just do whatever it takes to do the job and no more, no less. Or to contribute or to win. You see, this is no different as I talked before about going to a class and surviving is like getting a D, cruise is like getting a C, con like getting a B in a class, and A is sweet. So if you want to get an A in a class, you're probably going to do a little bit more than the guy who wants to get a C in a class. So you have to decide in your career, do I want to contribute or want to win? Going to cruise and survive, A1, you probably won't be on this call. Secondly, you won't be interested in doing anything extra to get ahead. All right? Because in order to get ahead, then these are the things you need to do, though. So I hope that to survive, you're there to contribute and win. And if you want to contribute and win, then you need to do these 4 things. Number 1, right about you have to prepare, though. You prepared. You have to add value. You have to be different. Don't be the same old as everybody else. In a meeting, somebody says, John says, well, I think this is, and then it comes to me, and I go, yeah, I agree with John, though. But I had anything else, so I agreed, which is fine, but that doesn't make me any different than anybody else, though. All right? And then proactive. You cannot be proactive. That means you put up your hand, or you volunteer, or you suggest some ideas. You have to be prepared. So you have to prepare, to be proactive, though. But here's what happens, though. So let's have a discussion, and your boss goes, we're trying to go green here, and I like to thank John for coming up with these ideas, and John's the new guy, right? Or Sally over there who came up with it. I realized company XYZ was doing all these things because they did a little bit of research, or they had a friend from ex-colleague from college was there, and they found out a couple of things, and added value in the meeting. So, company XYZ is doing these 3 things. The manager said, wow, that's great. I really didn't realize that. Thanks for participating and giving that input, and that affects your self-concept again. Then you go, oh, God, he really likes what I've done. And that helps to affect your behavior. That makes you want to go up the intention cycle, and then you start playing that circle. So, in fact, you start on the number 3. They all work together, right, in tandem. But if you do number 3, that means you prepare to add value. It's going to affect your image and your self-concept and your ability to want to win and contribute in the company. So it's really, really important, and you need to figure this one out very early, okay? So the question to you is this: do you want to contribute, win, or do you want to cruise and get a job done? Your choice, all right? Next one. So we have image, intention, and approach, and hope you have a great image, your intention to win or contribute, and your approach is, I'm going to be prepared all the time. So this is what happens when you're there beyond the first week is, do it in, and all talking about you, what work ethic, and do you have any upside, though? Some specific questions that talk about this. So here's this. Do you like us? So if you, somebody's going to be thinking in the back of their mind, or they're going to be talking about it, right? Do you know that whole time orientation? Are you there? We talked about it last time, the meetings. Are you there? Do you respond to emails at the right time? How are your ethic and working the weekends? Do you know the culture? Do you have stories? Are you like us? And are you prepared to chip in and add value beyond your role, though? So you can't be, as a new person who goes, well, sorry, in my job description, it doesn't say that I need to do that. That's one of the worst things you could ever bring up. If somebody asks you to do something that may be just outside your role, and you're going to say, sorry, it's not my job, though. Okay? If you might want to be able to rethink that. Now, they're asking you to do something really out of the thing, you have to make that call. And all I'm saying is, when you want to stand out, you need to be prepared to chip in and add value. Otherwise, you're going to be taught by a guy who's just looking at his own role and not wanting to help. That's the last thing you want to do. That's to you. That's what it is. And this is even more important is people are always thinking about, are you future talent? And people in management and supervisors and in upper management always talk about this. When somebody new comes into the company, somewhere along the line, very quickly they'll start talking about this. And they'll say, hey, do you think that person has potential? Do you think that person has upside? Does Sally or Susan look like she has potential? And you're going to base that discussion based on what we talked about before, your presence, your ability to connect, your ability to help and or take charge and jump in and stuff. And so we're going to be talking about this beyond. So dangerous. If you don't step up enough, and people say, well, sure here. Though, time they come around, they're looking for things that you do that show that you're not future talent. Versus if you show some spark up front, people watch out for you and actually maybe even help you to be future talent, because companies always need future talent. The key is this in the bracket: that you need to find out what it takes to succeed in your organization. i.e., competencies or the values that the are looking for as future talent, though. So results only? Is it about the culture? Is it about fitting in? What is it is important in an organization to be considered as future talent? And the very simple thing to do is this: go ask, though. Ask your boss, though. Hey, what does it take to get ahead in this company? Though? Okay. So in the head of that department so successful, though. What made him so successful? And just that discussion, and people will see that you're interested in that. All right? Very simple, guys. Just a next one. What 30 days? Here things that you really need to know. Number one, do you know our most important goals and targets or problems? So you should be able to find out. If you don't, then ask somebody, so what are the biggest goals? What is the biggest target? Or what are the biggest problems we face? And if you can, help these problems. So take, for example, if you know that the company is having a big implementation for SAP, which is a system for HR and supply chain management, let's say, and a friend in another company that has implemented SAP, you're going to go back to the next meeting and says, company XYZ, they had a list of useful things that they learned from their SAP implementation. Would you like me to share that with you? And you told me as a boss that, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, show it to me, though. And if the list is stuff that we already know, it shows me that, A1, you knew that SAP implementation was important. 2, you actually did something about it. So, number one, do you know, very important, do you know the most important goals and targets for your company? And I'm helping them, all right? That's one. Network inside and outside the organization. We'll talk specifically about that later on in a little chart I have for you, but this is the one right up front. You already know this, but it is, in the end, it is the people who want to know you because of what you know or who you know. Not in college or in high school and stuff. People want to know you because of who you're associated with. It is the same thing in an organization. That means, and people judge you by who you know inside and outside the company. I know a lot of times when I go around in the industry or outside, and when people talk to me, I said, "Oh, Richard, yeah, I know Richard, huh? We go back way back when." And people, the conversation suddenly changes, though. Here's the point, though. Richard, when I was starting out in Motorola, it was and volunteered in some committee in something way back when. He was on that same committee. He wasn't a big at him. But over the years, I kept up with him, and guess what? Now there's a big shot, and I'm a big shot. We can associate with each other. So you have to do this early on, though. I see many new people join the workforce decide that working is not part of their job spec because, and it's outside, though. So join an industry group, volunteer for some committee, and that's where you start getting to know people, though. Okay, very important. There's a couple of the skills I'm going to teach you later today, but we're going to talk about this. So POV is your point of view. So how do you share your point of view? Say confidently, and then something which I call setup statements to set yourself apart. And this is really important because setup statements are something very simple, and all you need to do is figure out how to do this, and you'll be way ahead of people who are in your peer group, though, because most don't use this. Now, where does all this come from, though? So I may have mentioned this before, but about 2 years ago, I actually did research, and based on my own experience, and then talking about 86, the in here is a lot higher than this now. But talking to executives, vice presidents and above of multinational companies, Fortune 500 companies, and different industries and ethnicities and company HQs, and we're asking the questions, what do you want more from your managers and executives? So that is the research question. And I talked to a whole bunch of different companies. You can recognize some of them here. I just put them up for you to see. So they're all senior people asking them the question, what do you want more from your exec managers? And they came up with the 7 facets that are right here, though. So something to write down with, or you're going to print screen or whatever it is, catch this one, because this in essence is, if you can master all these things, you will in a very short time, though. Just articulate and explain to you exactly how this works, though. Number one, okay, a point of view clearly. If there's anything else that a manager, executive, an individual can do in an organization, is articulate their point of view clearly. Make people in meetings or in Q&A sessions, question and answer sessions, around in circles, and then people have no clue what their point was. It was 2 points, 3 points, or 5 minutes later, people are totally confused. All right? So that's the worst thing that could happen to you. Number 2 is communicate confidently. How do you stand up in front of a group, whether it's large or small? You may be the newest one on the block and still communicate confidently. People can see that very clearly up front. Personally, we talked about that before, and I will teach that to you really quickly. So the first 1, 2, and 3 is your communication style. This is your presence. Remember we talked about the path to success, your presence? Number 1, number 2, and number 3. If you can do those things, will definitely set you apart from everybody else. Now, I want you to yourself, though. You keep going, yeah, I already know that. Immediately, if you're saying that to yourself now, you have a problem, though. Okay? Because it's not that you know that, it is, okay, what specifically is Stephen saying, or somebody else saying, or somebody else doing that I learned from, that implement to make myself even better than somebody else. I'm doing an MBA class. I was talking to the MBA class in the University of Washington, and I asked one of the ladies, I said, hey, you're going to graduate soon, so who do you want to work for? This is Microsoft. I said, okay, pick this. You're at the final interview. You have this one guy in the final interview, final round. You're in the kind of lobby. There's there, and you think the person is probably from Washington State or some other university in the Northwest, and you turn to the person and you say, so who are you from? And the guy says, Harvard. And they go, oops. Immediately, if you're not confident about what you can bring to the table, and you know you can dial up your game, anyone who says that it will make you feel inferior, you're going to lose. That's what we're going to talk to you about. So don't say, I know that. Right? Say, okay, he's saying something, he learned something, because when someone else says I'm from Harvard, I do these 3 other things that will just knock them off their pedestal. All right? And that's the kind of confidence you need. All right? So 2. So 1 and 3 is your communication style. 5, builds trust and provides direct feedback, determines people trust you and you have integrity. That means, will you tell it like it is, or tell me what I want to hear, though? I can tell for all the years I've been in corporate, I know the people who I will go to who will tell me what I want to hear, and I know the people who will tell me like it is, though. Decide which one you are. I can't tell now because there's no right or wrong, but decide. So the 2, 4, and 5 is very important, because some you may have to give feedback that they don't want to hear, or you have to put it in a very nice way. The question, can you do it, and do you know how to do it? So that's very important, especially the higher you go in the organization, the people are looking for people who are able to give direct feedback in a way, very professional way. You don't have to be rude about it, and that will help build the trust and your credibility in the organization. So those 2, 4 and 5, is about your trust and integrity. Number 6 is, can I count on this person? Do you take ownership? So let's put up your hands right up front. So count on this person to say, hey, if I need a project to be led, or I need something to be done, count on this person to take ownership and say, hey, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And that's very important. And 7 is very simple, which is coaches and recognizes, which is, does he build the environment, the culture here? So does he give recognition to people when they deserve it, or is he a person, or she is a person who takes all the credit for themselves? Build the atmosphere and camaraderie in the group, or you want the one who takes it away and always causes trouble? So very simple. And on the outside of the sort of diamond here, and right in the center, you see that again. In order for you to stand out, you need to do these 4 things, which is, you got to pair, add value, you have to be different, and have to be proactive. Activity is, like I said, is one of the things we practice a lot in class, and some of you may say, well, yeah, I'm proactive. We run a drill in the class where if I ask a question and nobody puts their hands up within the count of 3, you're too low, though. Think about it, though. Then when somebody asks a question, we're thinking of the answer already, though. So in classes, anticipate the question, already prepare an answer beforehand, so that when they do ask the question, you already got your point of view ready. You may have it a little bit, but if you put your hand up and you are deemed to be a little proactive and be standing out. So this is one thing that you got to pay attention to. So if you have this in the book that I wrote, the 5% zone, we actually talk about this is how to stand out as a global executive. I don't know global executives yet, but you can really do that by learning these 7 things and the standout behaviors in the center. Because I teach this to executives, even senior executives themselves. So the 4 B. Number 1, you have to increase your visibility in the organization if you want to stand out and if you want to be a star beyond the first few days in the organization. So how do you increase your visibility? Back to the meetings and stuff like that. Number 2, so you have visibility. The second one is raise your energy. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, because most people don't talk about this. But I'm just going to give you a simple little exercise right now, though. So you may be, I'm assuming all of you sitting down, some of you may be even lying down, listening to this, but think of this. Said, I show me levels of energy, right? So is the first one, percent, 50%, 75%, 100% energy, okay? What you have to do now is do this. So just follow along with me. So even as you're sitting down, just show me 0% energy. If you had 0% energy, what would you be doing in your chair? Okay, now 25% energy. So you moved a little bit. 50% energy. Most in your back. 75% energy. You're probably sitting in the front of your seat. And 100% energy. You're there. Open your eyes, or you're ready to go, and some of you are standing up. What's the difference? Why is this important? Because when you're making your point of view, and when you're talking or you're communicating confidence, you have to be at least 75% energy or higher, otherwise you won't come across. Make a mistake that we are exactly who we are all the same time. And I can tell you, most people are at 50% energy all the time. So when they answer a question, they're still 50%. When they talk and try to make a point of view, they're 50%. And when they sit down in the chair, they're still 50%. You have to switch to your 5% zone, and this is an important point. You have to switch to a 75 or 100% energy level. In classes, we actually even, practice 125% energy level. But all I want you to do is understand that there are many different energy levels, and to be at a higher level if you stand out. Now, esoteric to some of you, but this is one of the key things that most people don't talk about. All right, you have to figure out how to be at a higher energy level when you want to try and make your point of view. You can after that and sit down and be at your 50%. But articulating your point of view, you have to be at 75% or higher. Be different. We'll talk about this later, but all I'm saying is do not follow the crowd, though. If you want to, in your normal meetings, it's okay, but if it's an important meeting and you want to be standing out, you have to do something different. I'll give you an example, a story right now, and is to share my point, and I'll relate it to when I talk about setup statement. But I invited to a luncheon, and I had 120 people in the group, and it was a how lunch come Q&A. And simple. So, 20 minutes Q&A, 20 minutes presentation, 10 minutes Q&A. She invited me. I knew what she was trying to do, because she was trying to say, hey, you're going to tell people to stand out. Let me see if you can stand out with this group of 120 executives from around the world. I said, no problem. I went in there. I knew I had a problem right up front, because there were pretty good people, and the lady who was speaking was a former communications director for George W. Bush when he was the president. So, right at the slide came out, Q&A. The first person put his hand up. So immediately, a split second, I already lost out. Though. I prepared my 2 questions during his speech, though, but I lost out from speed. So he asked his question. Before he finished sitting down, somebody else put up his hand. And guess what? I stole my question. He actually asked the same question I wrote down, though. Now, what's going to happen, though? You're going to go, well, never mind. I don't want to ask the question. I want to stand out. So what do I need to do to stand out? So attention. I was watching this whole thing going on, and this is what happened. Every time they stood up, the guy with the microphone to run over to the person, hand him the microphone, they asked a question. Did the same. When the third time I put up my hand, she was motioning the guy, and in my loudest voice I had, I said, I do not need the microphone. I see you, everybody in the room turned around to look at me, though. That way of being different, though. I wanted to get the attention even before I asked the question, though. And that's one of the things. So, anyway, value, you're always getting value, and be proactive. So let's move on and so very quickly then, all 7 facets and the things to stand out. How do you rate yourself? Just a couple of seconds to look at this little list here, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself? Are you articulating your point of view? Are you communicate confidently? So just kind of give a number to yourself. What I'll do is, which one is your strongest? You need to know which one is your strongest. And then you need to work a bit more on those. If you're strong in something, that's great. In a particular thing, watch how other people who are good at it do particular skills. So build trust. It's simple, but it's not, right? How do you direct feedback? How do people say? How do they say it? How was the timing of it? Okay? So, got one of those things. What we do in the class is actually then work on a couple of those things specifically, but we're in the class. But I'm giving a little sense of what happens. It's the second one as well. So 10, how good are you or at being different, in proactive? You add value all the time, though. Your preparation on a scale of 1 to 10 for anything that you're going in, especially important meetings, prepared, though. And all these call preparation does not sometimes takes a lot of time. Example, you go for a meeting and it's some new customer relations, new customer service thing that we want to do. All you need to do is call somebody from your network, if you have one, and says, hey, what are you doing about customer service in your organization? And then, oh, that's interesting. Okay, great. Hey, thanks, Tom. Hey, let's catch up for lunch next time around. Okay, good. Put down. Now you go to the meeting, and the boss says, so any ideas here? You go straight up and he says, I've been talking to the guys in Boeing, and one of the 2 things they're doing to differentiate themselves for their customer base is A1, 2, this. And you sit down, people go, even if they don't say anything, in the back of their head, they're going to go, shoot, this guy talks to the guys in Boeing. It already showed that you prepared. It's taking you a 5 or 10 minute call. Say that. The trick is you have to be prepared for the topic you're coming to discuss. It's an important topic, especially remember the goal. If the goal, if it's a problem for the organization, you might want to spend some time doing this, all right? So, next, here's the first things, if I can teach you. Remember I told you about the guy who was in a banking and he learned form ORM? So the first tool that I want to teach you, if you go to meet anybody at any cocktail party, at any dinner, all you have to have is FORM in your head. So FORM is an acronym. Keep it in the back of your head. And I'm going to give you the what FOR and M stands for, and how do you create questions or start a discussion. Most of the time, people think that to have a discussion, you have to be talking all the time. Actually, is the reverse, though. What you need to do is have good questions and let the other person talk. Now, you contribute as well if they ask you the same question, but you need to lead the discussion. So the first one is F, which is family. Now, family is not, do you have a family? But it starts from broad questions like, hey, where are you originally from? And some people keep talking, I'm from the Northeast, or my family originally comes from Germany, or whatever it is, or, roots are in South America, whatever it is, right? And then, where do you grow up? We grew up in a small town in Texas, or what it is, or do you have family here? Your family is a very broad category that asks you about where people are from, where they grew up, or do they have a big family themselves? People like to talk about family, though. oh, where is family here? Yeah, I have 3 daughters. They're here. They're going here. They're doing this. My second daughter does this. My third, and some people, all you have to do is go, really? And people keep talking about their family. Now, people do not like to talk about their families. If you is not like to talk about their family, then you go to the next category, which is occupation. So you go, hey, if you know them or you don't know them, if you're in a networking thing, so what do you work? Or who do you work for? What is your role? Okay? What's best about your job? So you start broad and you keep narrowing down, though. Okay? Actually, very simple. Then, what is the best thing you like about your job? Or how do you ever get into supply chain? Or how did you... And if people really love what they do, you have 20 minutes to listen because they will start talking either about their company, their occupation, though. Or you say, I really wanted to get into finance. So what do you think, though? And they'll share with you, though. Okay? Now, person doesn't want to talk about their family and doesn't want to talk about their organization or occupation. Then you go to the next one, which is R, which is, that's right, recreation. So, what do you do for fun? In your free time, hey, what do you like to do outside of work? And people, now, what do you have a favorite sport? Do you have a hobby or something? And some people love to talk about their hobby, their sport, or whatever. Or say, whoa, I love sports. Well, who's your favorite team? And who's your favorite player? And do you like that player? So you start broad and you keep narrowing down. And in many instances, with the first 3 categories, you'd find something that somebody's interested to talk about. Now, if talking about F, O, and R, family, their occupation or recreation, you may not be wanting to talk to them anyway. Okay? But it's the key, though. I don't know, in the communications classes you've gotten, but, people always talk about active listening and how to repeat what the person says, all that stuff, right? Let the person talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then right in, you just talk about the message. The message is this, though. Okay? Be disengaged from the person. You have to repeat the important thing they said, the discussion. So let's say they decided to play baseball. Then right when you leave, you say, hey, you know what? Maybe the next time we play some baseball, the trip here, or love coffee or whatever. He says, hey, we should go out for coffee sometime, and talk about your implementation of what are the finance thing that they talked about, or they go, tell me more with the whole area of supply. And I'm really interested in. I know we don't have time, and so disengage by talking about something that is the most important that you heard in that discussion. FORM. It'll amaze you if you just follow this little thing, because now you know exactly how to ask questions in a particular category. You can jump around if you want, but please have a format in your head to start the discussion, though. Most people think what to talk about, normally in your head, and all you have to do is just down that line, though. The trick is to have a couple of questions in those categories, but I'm assuming you already know that kind of stuff. I'm pretty savvy. And just follow FORM. It has never failed me and many of the students that I've taught this to. And of course, usually they have a whole bunch of time to practice, but it's something else. So next one, kind of the tool that is very important. So remember, we talked about communicating confidently. So the things you need to do is ask timely, impactful questions. I'll do in the next couple of slides, 3 type of questions you need to ask, but before that, and then you interject proactively, and then you kind of use setup statements. So what I want to do is actually teach you setup statements in green here, because most people underuse it, have what it is, or and you know it and you use it it'll help you stand out. So I'll give you this thing right here. So what are setup statements? Setup statements are statements you say right before you make your point. Attract people's attention to your statement or your point. So take an example. If I have 2 or 3 things to say, instead of just jumping in and into it, I will say, ladies and gentlemen, I have 2 points to make. And then you say your point, and then you say 2, and you make your point. Then you sit down. By giving a number up front, people think you think logically, and you have very clear ideas and number of ideas to give them. Very amazing, okay? All you have to do is go up. If somebody else says, they talk, my suggestion is this, and then says, I have 1 other point to make. You go, wow, right? Now, give you a caveat. So, if I have 2 points to make, and you actually make, or you make 3 points, people go in their head, they go, I thought I had 2 points, so how can I add an extra one? Or if you have 3 points to make, and then you stop at 2, somebody with their hand up says, you said 3 points, what's your 3rd point, please? Realize this, and you may have seen this or you haven't seen this before, but giving a number up front, what it does, it gives you a frame to answer your idea, especially if you're a rambler. Structure for people to follow in their head when making a point. Do that, you set yourself totally apart. Okay? You realize this, but go and practice this. This one's the single biggest idea that you've and so take one. Here's a number. He says something. So what key points I want to say here is do not follow or do not use the same setup statement as somebody else right before you. So if somebody says, they won't say, but let's take for example, someone says, I have 3 points to make, and it's your turn. You go, well, I also have 3 points. If you say that, it sounds really corny, or it's like you're following the person. Okay? Repeat the setup statement that someone else is going to say right before you, or in fact, anybody in that meeting. We do as an exercise is when we sit groups of 10, usually it's 8 or 10 at the table. It's even groups of 40 when I have the whole class. I will make everybody come up with a different setup statement. And they cannot follow or copy the setup statement that was done by somebody else. And what? Even if their English is not good, and I assume all your English is pretty good anyway, they come up with a setup statement because they have to pay attention. Don't pay attention to what the person before us is saying. We're paying attention to what we are going to say. What I say is this. By using a great setup statement, you set yourself apart before you even say something. Okay? So that's the funniest thing. So remember when I said in the meeting just now, I said, I do not need the microphone. That forced everybody to pay attention to me. He even said something. And you know what happened? It's a continuation of the story, though. The day I was at in an area in Singapore at the time, and the guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you were the guy that asked the question yesterday, right?" I said, yeah, and we sat down and we talked for another 5 or 10 minutes. Do you think anybody in that room even remembered the first 2 people that asked the question? You question, but if you don't have anything to attract people to remember your question or your point, you won't be as effective. Doesn't mean you won't be effective. It means that you will not be as effective. In fact, a couple of administrators from a university I won't mention, and when they learned this point, I had called 2 days later, and the guy said to me, he said, "You know what? I attend these staff meetings, and nobody used to ever listen to me. Now, they all look to me to what to say next. Though. And all I'm doing is using setup statements. You see, people that if you learn the setup statement, most people don't even know it exists. And when you do use it appropriately, you stand out really, really well. So that's kind of the interesting thing as well in terms of setup statement. Okay? One thing here, try and, if time, write down a couple of things that you can do in terms of different setup statements. Just a couple of three, if you have to think. So, for example, if you're in the beginning, at the end of the meeting, and you say, most important point all of you have missed is, you just pause for half a second, everybody's going to turn around and listen to your point. Now, you have a good point, but all I'm saying is the setup statement is there to your point more effective though. So if I say the statement is actually more important than your point though. Okay? What I say right before you make your point is more important than your point. And that's the setup statement. So long, there's still a couple more things that I want to share with you. So hopefully something of that is the setup statement is really important. And I wish we had time to practice it and give feedback to people, because there's one key things that you can do to set yourself apart. Third one, are highly impactful questions. What I teach executives and everybody else, so you're lucky you're even getting this, because a really, really simple way to make sure that you always have one of these three questions you need to ask at any time. Because in the meeting or it's an organization, somebody's going to say, anybody got any questions for me? Let's say it's a visitor from the headquarters, or it's your boss or your boss's boss, and he goes, now start to think about the question. Right? If you're only starting to think of the question, then it is too late. Okay? Here are the three types of questions you should always have ready. If you have a pen and paper somewhere, I suggest you write a couple of these down. One, individual question. Okay, very simple. Whomever speaking, here's the question. What is your perspective on blank? So depending on whether you have something that you wanted to ask him about, or something about the company's problem, or a customer, or ask people an individual question, which is, what is your perspective on? It is collaboration, whatever. So that's one, first question. Second question, company or market or a product kind of thing. You can say it's let's use market as an example. Main market is X, right? So blank. Do you see the possibility of it shifting to blank? So our market is blank. Do you see a possibility of it shifting to blank? Ask the question that way. It allows the other person to answer it and talk about it. So I substitute the word market with a product. Our main product is blank. Do you see a possibility of it shifting anytime soon, or shifting into some other thing? Blank. Okay? Simple. That's company market. The third, competition. No, our competition, our customers will not respond in the same way. How our customers are happy with our new direction? Or how do we know our customers are happy with our new product? How do we know our customers are happy with our new process? How do we know our competition is not doing the same thing? It's a very broad category, but if you ask these questions, I guarantee you'll be ready to put your hand up first and be proactive and ask these three questions. So here's the trick. If somebody's asking an individual question, you ask the individual question, you ask a company or market question. And if someone in the meeting asks those two questions, then you jump to customer and competition. So I'll give you an example of my own daughter. She went for an internship with a company called Expeditors here in Seattle. And she said, I'm going to meet with the CEO. What question should I ask him? So I asked her, I said, hey, so what have you been finding out so far? And she said, you're really big on systems and stuff like this. And I said, okay. So ask the CEO this question, though. How do you know your competition has not caught up with you in terms of the technology, which is a category, right? Customer competition. How do you know your competition has not caught up with you in terms of our technology? A CEO said, you know, no one's ever asked me that question before, though. By doing that, immediately you stand out versus anybody else in the organization, though. And those are the types of tricks that I'm telling you that you need to have. So, what's the point here? That I have 3 questions ready, the can in the back of your pocket, ready to ask, write it down, put in your phone, whatever it is. And somebody says, any questions for me, just jump up and ask the question. Really simple. Okay? Next one. 2 people, internal and external. I don't know, some people think this is a lot of work, but this is your work, though. That is, for me, in terms of how I got through my career, I say I was probably one of I won't say even the best networker. Made it a point to network internally, which is your own department, other departments that work with you, and even with management. If you are able to do that, then people know you, and that's how you become potential and or promotable and or known by people. If you're not known, you'll never get promoted in an organization. Secondly, is how to network externally, though. The industry group, an association that you go with. Do you volunteer to be on a committee? Do you follow industry group leaders on social media? Do you attend a conference or a meeting? Do you have alumni from university that you follow up with and keep in touch with? You never know when you need this, but your external perspective is always going to be seen as 2x the effect or the impact over something internal. So let's have a discussion, and people say, yeah, so-and-so from the other department thinks this, and or so from that department had to suggest. And you say, I think this industry leader, the Stephen Krempl guy, and what he says is, immediately it adds a whole new dimension to the discussion, though. The point, you need to have to spend your time in order to do that. So my point is this. The internal networking you have to do anyway. That's part of your job. Find one. I'm not going to do 2, 3, or 4. Just find one thing that you got to do from the external side. Find an industry group, find some meeting, find some conference, something that you can go and make industry contact, especially if you're industry early. Here's the thing that happens. If you're early in the industry, about it, and you see people who are more senior there, all you have to do is use FORM, and then go and and says, you've been in this industry for a long time. Can you tell me how to get ahead in this? And people love to help people who are new in the industry, though. Hey, let me, hey, come on, so-and-so. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. And that's how you get to meet people. If you are genuinely wanting to learn, they will want to teach you, though. The point is you need to or want to be to do working. I've got a couple of minutes. So I've got a few more slides, just a couple more slides here to go, and then we'll do Q&A. So please prepare your Q&A questions. And this one is an important point because I talked about quite a number of different things. And the thing is this, though. And people don't like to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. So question. What are some of your cultural or personal blocks that prevent you from speaking up, being limelight, and networking inside and outside the organization? Now or in the future with colleagues, bosses, and even clients. So let me read the question. What are some of your cultural and or personal blocks that prevent you from speaking, being limelight, inside and outside the organization now or in the future. What are the things, though? I want you to think about, as I'm talking, I want you to think about one personal block. Remember when I said that the issue of I know that and you don't understand? People use those excuses for not doing something. You identify right up front, early on, what are some of the excuses. Now, you may still use them. If you can do something that's really, really important, when it comes up, you need to find something to go over that and know, okay, this is my excuse. Let me try and get over it. Because I know a lot of time people say, in my culture, we're told to speak up. We're told to blend in and respect others and all that kind of stuff. A great excuse, using it, because if you're in a 5% zone and if it's a 5% important meeting, you need to step up, though. So those is the excuse of my culture, or I'm not confident enough, or I've always been told that I need to do this or that or whatever it is. I don't care. 5% of the time you can use that excuse, but 5% of the time when you need to stand out, especially in the organization early on, don't use the excuse, though. Some don't like to be in the limelight. Some people love to be in the limelight. Okay? Now, those that love to be in the limelight, then you have to be in the limelight appropriately. Find the cultures in your organization and leverage that skill. If you do not like to be in the limelight, I need you to be in the limelight all the time. I'm asking you to be in the limelight 5% of the time, though. So here's the thing. People you one you do only in the whole year, though. I know a lot of things throughout the year, but people remember 1 or 2, 3 things that you do in the whole year. And those things that come up when we're talking about succession planning meetings and stuff. And I've been in very many of those things, right? A person's name will come up, and I'll use my name as an example, right? And then and they'll go the discussion. So we'll have the HR guy, maybe the OD person, organizational development person, president, and then we'll have a whole bunch of different people run through it. And then the next name will come up, and it's Stephen Krempl. And they go, yeah, Stephen Krempl. Think about him. What do you think about his future? This guy, he adds value in our meetings. Every time he comes to the meeting, he always asks great questions. He shares that stuff, from other companies. They'll turn to this person and he goes, yeah, I remember that one all-team meeting. He had a great question about our problem and how he was going to solve it. Yeah. This guy has great potential, though. It was 2 questions in 2 meetings, though. Down to it, that's what the people remember, though. I remember why I remember it. Because I use setup statements to make myself separate from everybody else in the head. See, I think that this is the only thing is you need to identify what stops you from doing this stuff. If you think there's nothing that stops you, great. Most of the people I know and the executives I know, all one thing that stops them. Number 1, they don't think they're good enough. 2, don't think they know enough. 3, they think somebody else is better than them. So, right? Your organization, you're going to be there for the next 20 or 30 years. You better learn how to speak up, be in the limelight, and know how to network inside and outside the organization. Though. If you cruise for the 20 or 30 years, that's a different story altogether. Okay? A couple of things. Here's the second last slide. And 3 that I want you to think about. Time. Okay. You need normal chair and self-talk. 5% of the time, you need to be cued in on focused, constructive self-talk. I mean, you psych yourself up to say, hey, I'm good enough, I'm great, I'm prepared, let me go and do something. Samples of 5%, right? What does an athlete say to himself before a race? If Usain Bolt or something, you're the best sprint athlete in the world? Are you at the starting blocks going, oh, I hope I don't screw up, I hope I don't screw up, I hope I don't lose the race? You never say that. You're saying, I'm everybody here, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I'm winning. That's what you say to yourself. Executives say before a presentation to the board, the executives can't be going, oh no, I hope they're going to ask me this question. Gee, I'm not prepared now. You talk yourself into that kind of a spin, you spiral right down though. Okay? Note it from you doing it right before a class presentation or a presentation you have to do online though. Okay? You have to say a few things to yourself to get yourself psyched up. Do those things that you say to yourself. I suggest you write 1 or 2 words down that you say, I'm ready, I'm good, I'm great. You have to say those things before you do one of those 5% zone important thing areas though. Operate. Activities though. Okay? Same way you do it all the time. But if it's an important key activity, then you might need to raise your energy level up, different, and to achieve those key goals. Okay? So the examples though. If you're putting questions for a CEO at an all-team meeting, remember I told you you have those 3 questions, right? Right. And just before you put your hand up, your little voice is going to yourself that, no, that's not a great question. I don't think you should ask it. Put your hand up and ask the question though. How you stand out. All right? On how you act. Yourself, you don't need to, I don't want to, I'm not being true to myself, I'm really a shy person, I'm really quite laid back, so I can't be speaking up. No, you need to step up or stand out in a specific situation or interaction though. At that situation you can go back to being normal though. So you must think we're 100% the same all the time. We're the same all the time. So how to act in your 5% zone? Use up statements to draw attention to important points. Push when you believe your answer, your project, or your idea is you really believe in them, and then put your hands and volunteer to lead projects and stuff. So that I'm going to end, and I thank you for listening to me. I got a whole bunch of stuff. It's hard to add in. But if you have any questions or comments or stuff, now is the time to ask. I'm open for questions, I believe, if there are any, that is.
No problem there. I couldn't unmute. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
A whole bunch of different things to consider. So
Questions on my end from anybody in the chat. Sorry about the little delay there. I'm not sure why I wasn't unmuting. But thanks everybody for taking time out of today. And Stephen, it's always been a pleasure.
Thank you much, Morgan, and I hope everybody wish you success in your future career. And remember, you need to stand out, communicate confidently, and connect personally, and you'll be great going forward. And talk to you guys.